Okay, let's just dive right into this. When you hear about the United States and Iran in the news, what usually comes to mind? Probably sanctions, right? Maybe nuclear negotiations or military standoffs in the Persian Gulf. But what if I told you that those headlines are really just the tip of the iceberg? Today, in this explainer, we're unpacking a massive, multi-domain shadow war that goes far, far beyond anything you're seeing on the evening news. We're talking about a conflict driven by decades of secret operations, incredibly intense intelligence battles, and mysterious events that have quietly shaped one of the world's most complex and, frankly, dangerous rivalries. We're going to look at everything from weaponized software that literally destroys physical facilities to psychological warfare campaigns, all the way to the hidden diplomacy happening behind closed doors. So let's get started. You might be thinking this is all just about oil, or maybe just about nuclear weapons. But what if it isn't? For decades, there have been hidden truths behind this rivalry. These are mysteries that governments constantly investigate, experts hotly dispute, and honestly, some that still have absolutely no clear answers. The reality is that this conflict operates primarily in the shadows. It's like a continuous, largely invisible chess match, stretching across cyberspace, intelligence networks, and proxy battlegrounds. It's a massive struggle for regional influence, where the most decisive moves are the ones the public rarely ever sees. Now, to truly grasp what's happening today, and to understand the incredibly high stakes involved for all of us, we have to look back at how we got here in the first place. Section 1. Origins of the rivalry, from allies to enemies. The most staggering part of this historical whiplash is just the sheer speed of the transformation. I mean, before 1979, the United States and Iran were actually incredibly close allies. They shared deep geopolitical ties, massive economic agreements, and extensive military cooperation. Iran was widely seen as a vital anchor for U.S. security interests in the Middle East. But then came the Iranian Revolution in 1979, and relations didn't just slowly cool off, they collapsed almost overnight. Following the revolution and the U.S. Embassy hostage crisis, they went from being these close strategic partners to sudden, fierce enemies. And historians, they are still debating this exact pivot point today. One of the biggest unanswered questions is whether this sudden breakdown was completely inevitable because of the internal political shifts happening inside Iran, or could different decisions on either side have prevented it? Whatever the case, the choices made in that brief historical window completely rewired the Middle East and set the stage for the next several decades of global history. Section 2. Covert and Cyber Warfare, the Secret Battlefield. So long before missiles and drones were dominating the headlines, cyber attacks became the real hidden frontline. Enter Stuxnet. This was an absolute game changer. It was a piece of malicious code that fundamentally changed the world because it proved for the very first time that digital software could cross over and physically destroy real-world infrastructure. In the late 2000s, this incredibly sophisticated computer worm infiltrated Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. It subtly altered the speeds of the uranium-enriching centrifuges, basically causing them to spin wildly out of control and destroy themselves. And the craziest part? It played back normal data to the facility operators so they wouldn't even realize what was happening until it was way too late. It was a massive global wake-up call. Since Stuxnet, cybersecurity experts have tracked a constant, escalating stream of cyber operations and retaliatory attacks linked to both sides, targeting everything from banking systems to critical city infrastructure. It is a relentless, totally silent war. But, the digital realm isn't the only hidden battlefield here. We are also talking about decades of classified espionage and highly covert operations. Former intelligence officials confirm there's an extensive, ongoing web of surveillance, infiltration, and intelligence gathering between the two countries. We're talking recruiting assets deep within government agencies and deploying some seriously advanced recon technologies. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Because the vast majority of these government records are highly classified, the complete picture is still a massive unknown. We're basically just looking at shadows on the wall, getting brief glimpses of a much larger apparatus, while the bulk of this high-stakes conflict happens completely out of sight. And this shadow war isn't just confined to covert operatives or power grids, it actually bleeds directly into our modern daily lives. The battlefield today is highly psychological. Information warfare isn't fought with traditional weapons, right? It's fought using AI-generated content, sophisticated bot networks, targeted social media campaigns, and calculated misinformation to sway public opinion all around the globe. Both state and non-state actors are utilizing these tools to amplify political divisions, obscure the truth during a crisis, and shape international narratives. Experts are constantly warning us that verifying what is real and what is completely fake is getting harder every single day. So this shadow war isn't just happening on top-secret government servers, it's happening right on the news feeds and social platforms that you and I check every single day. Section 3.
The proxy battlegrounds, the shadow conflict.
Okay, so here is a crucial point. Neither the United States nor Iran typically engages in direct conventional military confrontation. A full-scale, all-out war between their official militaries is exactly what both governments have historically tried to avoid. Instead, they treat the Middle East like a giant, complex strategic chessboard. They fight a shadow conflict by supporting partners, militias, and regional allies. Iran maintains a network of allied groups across countries like Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, providing them with funding, training, and tech. Meanwhile, the United States backs its own regional partners, maintaining a very significant military footprint and strategic alliances across the Gulf. Analysts point out that by operating through these regional actors, both nations are attempting to project power and achieve their goals while keeping the conflict just below the threshold of full-blown war. It is an incredibly delicate and dangerous balancing act playing out across several different countries. One bad miscalculation, and boom, you trigger a massive regional crisis. Section 4. Global economic choke points, specifically the Strait of Hormuz. Think about this for a second. 20%. To put that into perspective, literally 1/5 of the entire world's seaborne oil passes through this single, narrow waterway, connecting the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. Millions of barrels of oil flow through the Strait of Hormuz every single day. The global reliance on this one route is just immense. And we're not just talking about the gasoline for your car. This impacts the entire global supply chain: plastics, agriculture, manufacturing, the whole shebang. If this waterway were to be disrupted, the flow of energy that powers global trade would bottleneck immediately. That would send crude prices skyrocketing and drive up inflation worldwide. It affects all of us. Which leads analysts to this constant looming debate. Is the Strait of Hormuz primarily being used as a strategic bargaining tool to create leverage, or is it a realistic military target if things actually escalate? During periods of intense pressure, we often see military exercises and naval posturing in the strait. It's basically used to signal capability and resolve. It's a form of high-stakes brinkmanship. Even today, this route remains absolutely central to any discussion about regional security, because honestly, the mere threat of a closure is enough to send ripples of absolute anxiety through global energy markets. Section 5. The nuclear question. Unanswered intentions. At the very heart of all this tension is a profound lack of international consensus. Is Iran seeking only civilian nuclear technology for things like domestic energy production and medical research? Or could the program eventually be used to pursue nuclear weapons? You might think we'd have a clear answer by now, especially after landmark agreements like the 2015 nuclear deal and then the subsequent withdrawals. But no. As enrichment levels fluctuate and diplomatic oversight changes, international inspectors from the IAEA, global governments, and nuclear experts continue to fundamentally disagree over the ultimate long-term intentions of the program. Now, while some intelligence reports suggest no definitive political decision has been made to actually build a weapon, the capacity to do so continues to advance. And this deep uncertainty, this guessing game over breakout times and true intentions, is exactly what makes it one of the most volatile and heavily scrutinized geopolitical mysteries of our entire era. Section 6. Escalation or eventual peace. The opposing forces at play. So we're currently witnessing two very different realities happening at the exact same time. It's quite the paradox. On one side, we have severe escalation risks. Experts are constantly warning that a wider, overt conflict would completely shatter regional stability, disrupt global supply chains, and severely damage the world economy. That threat level, it's just a constant baseline now. But on the other side, we see secret diplomacy. Despite years of really loud public hostility, there are consistent, verified reports of indirect diplomacy and negotiations happening very quietly. Because official representatives often refuse to even sit in the same room, mediators from countries like Oman or Qatar frequently pass messages back and forth in secret hotel rooms in Europe or the Middle East. These talks will repeatedly begin, they might achieve minor breakthroughs like a prisoner swap, and then they break down all over again. It creates this fascinating dynamic where governments are heavily investing in military deterrence and preparing for a potential war, while simultaneously engaging in these hidden, desperate attempts to find a lasting agreement. So, where does this leave us? After decades of tension, crippling economic sanctions, collapsed negotiations, proxy conflicts, and this ever-evolving shadow war playing out in both the physical and digital realms, the ultimate question still remains unanswered. Will America and Iran eventually figure out a way to break this cycle and reach a lasting peace? Or will future generations simply inherit this complex, deeply entrenched rivalry? It's a reality that continues to shape our security, our economy, and our world every single day. And it leads us to wonder, how does this story actually end?